Welcome back, folks. Today's date is August 31st, 2022. Now, obviously, we have closed out the month of August, and I mentioned how this month tends to be generally a lackluster month. But with all the things going on geopolitically and stateside here in the United States, it's caused some, above normal volatility. I think you all have seen, by way of what I've been sharing on Twitter and the commentaries and such, examples of executions, that even in the month of August, my concepts do work. I just try to promote the idea of just relaxing a little bit, trying not to push it too hard. If you want to engage in a demo to stay close to the marketplace, that's fine. I do the same thing. But I don't want any of you to think that August should be a high frequency type of month. Treat it like a vacation month. Which brings us to, obviously, the closure of August, now everything after. In the United States, we have a election coming up in November, midterm elections. We have a lot of things going on with finance, banking, things that are really flying under the radar of most people. And I've been mentioning for, the summer of 2019 on Twitter, I was talking about how something wicked was coming and you need to prepare, get yourself ready. And in 2020, I mentioned to everybody in my mentorship they should get food and water and things stocked up and stay stocked up, rotate them out, get yourself a working pantry, because things might get a little harder on everyone. Food costs would go up. Obviously, all of us can testify to that now, even though I had paid members literally emailing me, telling me I was full of shit and had no idea what I was talking about. These are the type of things I don't like being right about. I enjoy being right in my analysis. I love sharing that the concepts work. But the things outside the marketplace, those are the things I wish I was not accurate with and what I see coming. Now, obviously, there's a lot of doomsday prepper type YouTube channels that's been out there forever, and they're really making the rounds now because it's obvious, the things that's going on around us. But for years before this actually started, I was prompting people that would listen to me. These are things that you need to make yourself aware of and prepare. It's just good insurance policy to have extra food that's non-perishable, canned goods, over-the-counter medicines, and things like that, water filters, things that help you if the power goes out. What happens if you lose power for a while? You're all looking at your smartphones, but you don't want to be trading on your phone. But how are you going to navigate if the power goes out? If the grid goes down in your area, how will that affect your business? Have you considered any of that? Alternative power sources, generators, light bulbs, solar converters and inverters. Those things, you might not be able to afford them now, but I was telling everyone to do that, get prepared. There's a massive push for currencies to go to digital, which some could argue and say, well, they're already digital now. Not to the degree that they're trying to make it, because we can still spend cash. But I think something, significance on the horizon, not in the far, far distant horizon, but in the near term, just in the offing. I don't know if you've noticed or not. I don't give much credit to Catholicism. Looks like Christianity, but I don't think it is. It is a bit concerning to see their Pope, their leader, their king, ordering all of the Vatican assets to be moved from the normal everyday banking sector to their own individual bank locally in the Vatican. And they placed a deadline on that, a rather short-term deadline. It has to be done. Now, before I get into this, I want to make sure that you understand that I don't have anything against Catholics. I just don't subscribe to their view on the Bible. I don't subscribe to their view on eschatology or the church. And I don't think that it should be ignored that they're trying to move and navigate and putting a hardline deadline on having all of the assets that the Catholic Church owns. And it's a pretty significant fortune. They're instructing all of those individuals to put all their money, assets, all the things, and remove them from the risks. Now, they didn't say it that way, but that's how I'm going to suggest it is to you. Why else would you want to scramble all hands on deck, get everything that's ours out of the banking sector that's used globally? Think about that. Sinking ships. Sinking ships. What do you see with sinking ships? Rats scrambling around, trying not to drown. Something big's coming, folks. Something real big's coming. The way we do business here in the United States, that's going to change. The way we do business globally, that's going to change. And it might, I've said this before a few months ago in my Twitter spaces, the little podcast things I was doing. We could see a disruption in trade. Not just trading like we do as speculators in the marketplace, buying and selling forex, futures, stocks and options and commodities, but also trade itself, country to country. There may be a massive disruption. And these types of events could usher in a great deal of uncertainty that leads to a great deal of stress, which leads to a great deal of hardship, and maybe civil unrest like we've never seen before. Now, it's happening in other countries, but we don't really see it that much in the United States because they like to filter our news. They have to spoon feed their arsenic, one spoonful at a time, to get everybody really, really falling in line with what they want them to believe and how they should think. But I think that there is a great deal of danger. I'll use that word. I think that's appropriate and fair. I believe that we're going to see potentially bank runs. And what is a bank run? People rushing to go and get their money out of the banks. Now, I've made several large purchases this year. And I can tell you, when I went to the bank, I've never had such a hard time getting out cash or a cashier's check. Like they didn't want to give me my own money. It took me an hour and 10 minutes to get a cashier's check for $286,000 in a checking account that has millions. So I understand that most banks don't have a lot of cash on hand. Like if you ever go to the bank and say, hey, I need to have $20,000 in cash, they're not going to want to give it to you. They're going to tell you you're going to have to order it. And it may take up to a week or 2 weeks to get to the bank before you can come pick it up. A lot of people don't realize that. I mean, you probably think the banks have cash just stacked up like in the movies. I was watching the movie Heat, which is actually one of my favorite movies with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and Val Kilmer. I got questioned the other day on Twitter. I didn't respond to it because the list is rather long. I have a long list of movies I like. But classics like Heat, that to me is an amazing film. And I actually watched it with one of my sons last night. They came over. And there's a scene in there where Val Kilmer goes into the bank, pulls out his duffel bag so they're robbing the bank, and there's stacks and stacks, like bricks of cash just laying in there. And they don't do that anymore, folks. That's not how the banks operate. So my point in this is when people start taking notice of what my students have been aware of for years now. Since 2019, I've been beating this drum telling you, you got to get ready, prepare. Now, you can say, okay, well, you said that in 2019, but things, yeah, it's a little wonky, but nothing's really happened yet. If you think that, wow, your world is changing at a breakneck speed. You just don't feel it yet until you can't do what you normally can do. Until you can't spend your own money, access your own money, then it's too late. And some of you might argue, well, I don't have that much money anyway in the bank, so what am I going to worry about? Well, I guess that's probably true. You don't have anything to worry about now, do you? But I would argue if you have $1,000 or whatever, in your bank account, and that's all you have, wouldn't you be upset if you couldn't access it? Do you remember when Greece went under heavy monetary restraints and you couldn't take out more than 75 euros a day from the ATM machine? Do you remember that? Because it wasn't a lot of chatter about that in the United States. What do you think that would feel like in the United States if you couldn't get that $75 or $100 or whatever it is that you would be trying to get cash out for? It was denying you, saying, no, you don't have access to that right now. What do you think the general population in the United States would do in that circumstance? Do you think everybody would just sit back and relax and just wait for everything to calm down and work itself out? Or do you think there'd be a large number of people tearing shit up in the streets everywhere, raising hell? That's kind of like what I see coming. And I don't want to see that coming. I don't want to see that in my state. I don't want to see that in your state. I don't want to see that in your country. But the things that are being put in place right now, that the average person just simply does not understand because they think it's Democrat versus Republican. Being back on Twitter reminded me how disgusting that platform is. It's full of asshats and people literally trying to program how you think or how you should feel about someone. Biden this and Trump that. It's the same coin, folks, just different sides of the same coin. No matter who they put in office, it's going to be a bunch of bullshit. Because this is going to unfold whether Trump gets back in office in 2024 or somebody else gets in office that's not Republican. This is coming. Period. All these things are coming. We're going to have a level of hardship that even my affluence won't shelter me from. These are the reasons why I talk to you this way, because some of you think that, ICT's loaded. You ain't got to worry about anything. No, I have family that I have to take care of. I have close friends that aren't set up like I am. And I've talked to them and they don't want to listen either. Despite seeing the things that I say, look, this is what's going to happen. And it happens and they think, well, I got time. Eventually, you're not going to have time. So we're closing August. We're fastly approaching the midterms in the United States. Now, for some of you outside the United States, it's easy for you to dismiss this as, well, it doesn't make a difference. I want you, if you're outside the United States, just sit back and watch. Watch what takes place in the good old United States, where certain things would have never been thought of as happening here. The land of milk and honey, where it's the land of opportunity, folks. You come here, good gracious, you can get yourself a house, a white picket fence, and throw in a dog and a rocking chair on the stoop, and man alive, you are set. As long as you keep paying those taxes. Just sit back and watch. Because frankly, I think we are about to see a shitstorm that nobody is prepared for. And it's going to be stressful. I talk to my wife when we take our walks or if we take our ride together. She hates anymore taking the drive with me because she's stuck in the car. And I'll talk to her about these things, and I go as far as I can, and when she's visibly, unnerved by it all, because who wants to hear this stuff? But my thoughts are this: if she's made aware of it now, and she can be conditioned to anticipate it coming, if it doesn't happen, then we're all the better for it. But if it does come, I won't be trying to put out a fire in her panic, because she won't see or understand what's going on. She'll know this is what you were talking about. Okay, let's do what you said we should do. And maybe you're asking, what is that? Well, we have locations that outside of the home that you all know about, we have locations that we can go to. And they're stocked up just as well as this house is. And we've made provisions for things outside of the state of Maryland. Should we need to leave this particular state, we can go elsewhere and just, boogie on down the road. But I want to kind of at least tap you on the shoulder, because we're closing August today. Just a few short hours, we'll be in September. And that's a wonderful thing, because volatility will be coming in the marketplace that makes, in my opinion, a little bit easier in terms of trading. Now, some of you watched what I was able to show and call and engage with executions in the month of August. It pretty much was like walking a dog. August was almost like a September. And to me, that indicates that we might see a really fast September and October, meaning a lot of volatility. And a lot of volatility is fun. That means we're going to have fast markets, big ranges. I'm anticipating that. And if we have specific events that would bring in civil unrest, geopolitical upheavals, war, things like that occurring in the United States will reverberate through the marketplace. And while that's not ever fun to hear about, and we don't really want to see anybody hurt or harmed, unfortunately, in this business, that spells hardship for the average person, but for a speculator like us, it's opportunity. And I'll leave it up to you for you to wrestle with the moral and ethic conundrum that may put you or a viewer and listener in. You can't be upset with the rain if you're chasing rainbows. You gotta endure the rain. So, if you have means, if you have the ability to do so, it's my advice for you to try to get at least a couple months worth of non-perishable foods. Get some things like candles and solar-powered lanterns, which are really cheap. You can get some off of Amazon. They're not that expensive. and you can leave them outside. They'll charge up all day and bring them inside, and they burn for a good 8 hours, and it can illuminate your home in case the power goes out. If you can afford to get yourself a generator, I shared one on my Twitter, which I used recently when we had a tornado come through the state of Maryland, and it tore up our area, and a lot of the power lines went down. And I was thankful I had that and a couple backups in the event that wasn't enough. But one of them ran three freezers, 2 chest freezers, 1 stand-up upright freezer, and a refrigerator. Just one of them, and it ran 10 hours on 1 gallon of fuel. That was amazing. So I stand by that product, not because they paid me, but I showed you the picture of the units. That way you can see it. It's hard to find them now here locally, though. I couldn't even find them on Amazon anymore. So I don't know if a lot of you went and saw that and said, let me get one and two. But in my opinion, that was the best couple $100 I've ever spent. Like, that preserved thousands of dollars worth of meats and foods that would otherwise have spoiled. Now, when you hear things like this, I've had students in my private mentorship when I first started talking about this, right before the COVID stuff broke out, because I was in agreement with shutting down everything for 2 weeks. But I also said, if we go longer than those 2 weeks, we are seeing something very, very bad. And I said all the things that we've watched, the whole vaccine, shutting down the economy, harming the economy, draconian measures being implemented on everyone, travel restrictions, all that stuff. All that stuff was said before it all happened. Now, am I beating my chest and bragging? No. I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong. I want all of you to be able to say, you dumbass, you thought this was going to happen and that was going to happen and it didn't happen. I will laugh and be thankful it didn't happen. But what if you don't prepare? And it does. Have you considered that? I mean, if you have a home, you probably have homeowner's insurance, right? Fire insurance. You drive a vehicle, you probably have theft and collision comprehensive coverage. You're paying those premiums. Why? Number one, it's required. Two, it's just peace of mind. Well, having non-perishable foods and water filters and a means of getting drinkable water. Maybe this isn't the type of discussion you expected or even want to hear. Rolling your eyes, especially young guys. The young guys, I found in my mentorship, they just laughed it off like, this guy's, he's loony. Until everything got shut down. And then they started emailing, saying, what the hell is going on? What's going to happen? There's a small number of people that you don't know. And they run everything. And they have this small window of opportunity that they're trying to navigate in to secure and hem up everything. And when everything goes to digital currency, that's it. It's a done deal. As soon as America gives up its cash and exchanging of cash with commerce, doing business, that's it. We're the last domino. I don't vote, folks. I've never voted, ever. If I were asked what party would I be most associated with, it would be most likely Republican. I am a conservative. Now, to the liberal listeners here, don't get your panties in a bunch. I'm just being open. I'm not trying to convince any of you of anything. I'm smart enough, not a genius like some of you think I am. But I'm smart enough to know that I'm not going to change your political stance. So please don't think that you're going to change mine, because it's wasted. I don't vote. I'm neutral because I think it's all bullshit. I'm sitting back watching you both, Republican, Democrat, devour each other because you're both being led down the primrose lane. So you both think, each party thinks that they're right, and you're both ass backwards. Both of you are wrong because you're fighting each other instead of recognizing that our own leadership, they're the problem. But they will mislabel, they will gaslight, they will stir up bullshit, make up stuff to get people whipped up into a frenzy, so that way you think it's those other guys. It's that other team that's doing it, and it's not. So we're closing August. And everything after is an uncertainty. The highest degree of uncertainty. You got to keep your head on a swivel. Be ready for anything. I mean, let's be honest, folks. The government came out during all that COVID bullshit and literally said UFOs are real. Think about it. And now they're saying maybe the unidentified objects that are never really known what they are, they're now a national security threat to the United States. And they call them objects that are not formed or created on Earth. Science fiction level shit, ain't it, folks? I told my folks, it's coming. Prepare yourself for science fiction level shit. That's what you should be expecting. But you're going to start seeing that big movement I told you. Because I'm releasing things that they don't want you to know. But focus on the lessons. Don't panic. Don't get nervous. Don't be anxious. Because these things are going to happen regardless. The only thing you can do is do whatever you can to occupy. Meet your ends the best way you know how. And this too shall pass. Until next time, be safe.